Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Chulin daf Chaf. We are going to begin on Yud Tesamid Beis by the Mishnah. Hashaykhet min astadim, shchita sukshera. So we're going to be contrasting shchita, which of course is the process of slaughtering an animal, as opposed to in the Beis Hamikdash slaughtering and doing the ritual ceremony of a bird, in which we do malika. So when it comes to shechita, even if it's done on the sides of the animal, like the side of the neck, then it's going to be kosher. And Rashi says this is even l'chatchila. Hamoilik min astadim malikasu psul. However, when it comes to the malika, which is not done with a knife, but rather with the fingernail, has to be the back of the bird, cannot be by the sides. Because the pasuk says mamul arpo, which is clear, means ma'acharav, from the back, not on the sides. And then the Mishnah continues. Hashaykhin min oidev shchita subsul. If you do the shchita from the back of the animal, that's definitely not good. For that matter, v'hamoilik min oidev malika sukshera. When you do malika from the back, of course the malika is good, because that's precisely what you're supposed to do. Now, why is the shechita possible? So Gemara says we're talking about b'shaloi. Okay, well let's look at that Rashi in a bit. Okay, and then it says hashaychem min atzavar, you shech from the neck. Obviously shechita suksher, that's how you're supposed to do. Moik min atzavar malika subsul. If you do the malika from the front, then it's possible. Shekol oyev kasher malika, v'lo atzavar kasher l'shechita. That the back is kosher for malika, and the front of the neck is kosher as well as the sides for shechita. Nimsa, kosher b'shechita, possible malika. Kosher b'malika, possible b'shechita. So you can only do the back for malika, and for the shechita, it could be in the front or the sides. So now let's look at Rashi. Shechita also is psula. The Gemara is going to establish b'shlu hikser hasimanim achir oirif, that in the event where you did the shechita in the back of the head of the animal, if you did not push the simanim behind the backbone, elochatach hamafrekas ad shegil simanim. If you cut the back of the head for shechita of an animal, and you just end up cutting the mafrekas, the backbone, first before you reach the simanim, the kodim shegil simanim nitrvo b'shviras hamafrekas. The animal becomes a treifa by you first breaking the backbone. Therefore, since it becomes a treifa, the fact that you cut the simanim properly afterwards doesn't help. Now, the truth is, well, how is that allowed then by a bird? Yafagad v'malika kshera hasam hu dekula metchila v'yad sof havi min hamalika v'havi kashar sheichet shenaikev esa veshed ma'at asher gumer shchitasa. So basically, it's the way that Rashi explains is that the reason why it works by malika is because that is the process of doing malika. Apparently, you do not need to put the simanim in the back of the mafrekas, but you can just do the malika in the normal way, and that's all considered to be a normal process of malika. Okay, let's look at question 2. Nimsa kasher b'shchita pasal b'malika, kasher b'malika pasal b'shchita. Ma aslam yute deloy tana lei. Okay, so the question is, what is that coming to add? So Rashi brings down to pasal malika if you're machzer simanim lachaya oirif, that you actually are maybe not supposed to put the simanim behind the backbone. That's not the proper way of doing it. Okay, let's hold off for question 2 till we get some Gemara down. So my oirif, what does that mean? Now oirif, of course, we understand to mean the backbone. Now, ilim oirif mamish ma'yirish sheichet of hil moyak nami. So, why does it mention shechita even if you do malika? Memul arpo amrachmana v'lo arpo. So it's supposed to be opposite the oirif and not the back itself. El my oirif mimul oirif. It means facing the back, which means therefore the mimul arpo means the back. Tani seva kol oirif kash malika. The entire oirif, the whole back neck, is kosher malika. Okay, so how do we know this? So the Tanrabanan, the pasuk says mamul arpo mul horoyis oirif. It means the part, the that which is facing the back. V'cheinu oimer v'hu yoshim umuli, that he was sitting opposite me. This is from Balak, Parshas Balak. V'oimer, and furthermore it says ki panu alai oirif v'lo panim. So my view, why do we have this extra pasuk? V'chitema oirif gufei v'yadin and heicha. Maybe we don't know where the oirif is. So dinada mul didei, to know it's facing the oirif. You don't even know what the oirif is. So heicha. So tashma ki panu alai oirif v'lo panim b'chlal oirif l'hadi panim. Okay. So Amri b'nei Rav Chia. Mitzvahs malika, the proper way of doing malika is actually to be makser simonim acharei oirif umoilik. So it's interesting. The way you're supposed to do it is you are supposed to take the simonim and put those simonim behind the backbone. So when you do the malika, you're going to hit the simonim first and do the malika properly, and then only afterwards you break the backbone. If you do it the other way around, you're going to make it apparently into a treifa. Some say no. It doesn't mean that you have to do it that way, but you can even do it. But the malika, the actual mitzvah, says Rashi, is lomik sheder umafrekes, is to actually do it and to break the entire thing first. Ad shetigil simonim. Ve'im hikser hasimonim. If let's say umolkan levadan avzuhi mitzvasa. Let's say all you did was the simonim by putting them in the back, then you did the mitzvah. But the truth is, the proper way is to do it so that you're actually breaking through the sheder and the mafrekas. Some say no, you can't cut through the spine first, and you must do it that way. So there's different questions. What should we do? It makes sense according to the opinion who says af machzer, but you don't have to. It says if you shech from the back, it's not good. But if you do malika from the back, it is good. Now, what is the diak from that? As we continue to chafam adalf, that you must put the simonim in the back. So might you remoilik? So then why are we saying that it only works by malika? It should also work by shchita. So the whole issue of shchita, of doing in the back, is because you're going to cause it to become a treifa. But if you put the simonim in the back by malika and shchita, so that it should work also by shchita. It must be coming to tell you that you could also do this, but you don't have to. And our Mishnah is talking about where you didn't do it, and therefore it's certainly okay. So so the young ones accepted, Rashi says Norim, the children of Chia, they accepted this answer. The Tani nimsa kasher b'shchita pasuk b'malika, kasher b'malika pasuk b'shchita. So l'miuti ma, what does that come to exclude? Lav, is it not coming to exclude? L'miuti makser simana yachar orif delo. That may be that by putting the simanim in the back, that you do not do this by malika. So maybe, and then that's going to be the perhaps the diak, that you don't do it that way. So Maramba Bar Chana lo. Maybe that's not what the Mishnah is coming to exclude. Rather, it's L'miyuti Shein V'Tzipayrin when it comes to doing the shchita with a tooth or with a nail. So what are you talking about? You're telling me that's possible. Shein V'Tzipayrin B'Hedja Katani Lu. We already know that you're not supposed to do that, says Rashi. Mishum Seifa Nakad Lo Kasha B'Malika Possible Shchita. It's coming to exclude a shein. Now, some teeth are allowed, some nails are allowed. So, when it comes to a tooth, mechuberes, b'tzipar mechuberes, psul b'shchita. So, even though the Gemara before said 2 teeth versus 1, here it's just making a distinction between mechuber and talush, which is interesting why Rashi does that. So anyway, that could maybe be the nafkamina when it comes to shein v'tziparin. El Amrav Yirmiyah limuti moichu mevi. It's coming to exclude the requirement like by shchita where you have to go in both directions because it has to be the koyach of the knife and not pressing. Mash'in kin when it comes to malika where the whole thing is pressing, so therefore you don't need moichu mevi. L'sagadat moichu mevi b'malika pasul. This is according to the one who says that it's taka pasul. To go both ways. So Bnei Rav Chia several command maybe malika possible. So they hold that it is possible. Okay. Let's get to the two dots. Rav Kahana, mitzvahs malika, the proper way of doing malika, kaitzetz v'yarid, says Rashi, that you cut and go down, below haylacha b'hava. You don't go back and forth. V'zuhi mitzvasa, and this is the proper way of doing it. Now, why does it say it that way? Some Rabbi Avin Lomemer, kaitzetz v'yarid in malacha maybe low, it's going to tell you that it has to go in one direction and not both. Rabbi Yirmiyah, koshkin and malacha maybe b'malika kasher. No, certainly, why would that be a problem? After all, if you did it one way, it's fine. So going back and forth, why would that be a problem? That this is also the mitzvah. So it's not necessarily, not everyone holds that moed chamevi is necessarily possible. Okay, now let's look at question 2. So what's kosher is b'shchita is possible malika. So what's that coming to exclude? Either it passes by malika that you're not supposed to be master simanim behind the neck, you just go it straight normal, or moed chamevi is not something which we do by the malika. TA 17. What do we see? The malika mamul oirif v'loy oirif mamish. So he says, because it says kol oirif kasher malika, the entire back is kosher for malika. And it's not v'lo shaykh b'oirif kol ha'oirif the davar mu'adhu. B'al korach dekoy amul ar ha'oirif at saver shu oirich. We're not talking about his entire back, right? V'lo shaykh b'oirif kol ha'oirif the davar mu'adhu. It's a small amount, so it must be talking about the neck, which is long. Okay. Let's see what I wrote over here. Masnisin oimer b'makam shchita zelo b'makam lasos malika yimkein hamalika mamul orev davka enu yochel oimer shekash b'shem malika. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what I wrote, but it has to do with the language of mamul oirev. Again, this is what was the answer again? That it says kol oirev kasher b'malika v'lo shach b'oirev kol oirev. So the fact that it says, what's this marked it? The fact that it says kol ha'oirif. I'll just write that. Okay. TB 18. Oh, TB 21. No. Okay, let's keep moving. All right. Rabbi Yirmi Omer Shmuel. Kol kosher b'shchita. Anything which is kosher by the shchita, which is the front or the sides of the animal, kenegdu ba'oirif kosher. Kenegdo ba'oirif kosher b'malika. So opposite by the neck is kosher by malika. So ha pasul b'shchita. Anything which is pasul of the shchita, which is the back of the neck, pasul b'malika is pasul b'malika. So what does this come to exclude? What's it talking about? So let's read this case one more time so we can break this down. He says like this: anything which is kosher with shchita, kenegdo b'oirif, kosher b'malika. So anything which is kosher by shchita is kosher b'malika. Anything which is possible b'malika is possible b'shchita is possible b'malika. So what is that coming to say? It's umiyuti ikr simanim. It's come to exclude ikr simanim, which ikr, which is one of the 5 things, is an animal which was shechted properly, but the top of the simanim were detached from the jawbone, from the lechi. So then the shchita becomes pasul. Says Rashi, the kivan de ein oisoi salver kosher l'shchita, since that wouldn't be kosher by shchita, ein oirv kenegdoi kosher malika. It doesn't mean the place, but it means the law. Whatever the laws are about doing the proper shchita in the front, so the same laws apply to the back. Which is telling us that just like there's an issue of ikar, detaching when the top of the simanim became detached from the lechi, so then that already becomes ikar, because like you're ripping it out, removing it. So too when it comes to the oirif. Okay? Af oirif kenegdo kosher malika. So whatever is kosher, there is kosher there. So that's what we're saying. Okay. So muti ikr simanim. Ay b'hatani rama barcheskel and ikr simanim b'oif. You're telling me that the same dinim of ikr by an animal apply to a bird. We don't say that. There is no din of ikr when it comes to a bird. So Amurav Papa Limute Roishai. It's coming to exclude the head. That the shechita is kosher by the head. Rosho pshitim amul arpoi amrachman of lobo rosho. In other words, you have to do the shechita on the neck or on the opposite, the front, which is the back. But obviously not the head, right? Obviously, the pasuk says explicitly you can't shech the head. That's way up on the animal. It certainly is not allowed. So my roishai shipuye roishai. It means the slope. Kagoin the nakam is shipuye rosho, that you took from the slope of the head. The higrim of ozol adamata tatoi, and it went down toward the proper part. So you maybe started up higher, then ended up going down, hitting the right place. So you could have Huna Amar Rav Asi, the Amar Huna Amar Rav Asi, higrim shlish, v'shachat shnei shlish psula. That if you started in the wrong place, even though it's true you ended up doing rov, which we talked about, if it's they're broken up into thirds, and there's hagrama, which is the wrong part of the animal, and it was done at the wrong place. So if the question is, how does that work? Okay, so if you were higrim shlish and the first third was in the wrong place, then even though the second third, and the last third were good, it's still possible. So that's all it's come to tell you. Amali Rabacha Barida Ravashi. Hadatani Rabbi Cheskel. Ein ikar simanim b'oif. We mentioned before that there is no din of ikar when it comes to a bird. The only time we say this concept is if you hold that shechita is not from the Torah. Actually, the whole din of shechita, as Rashi brings down, according to one shita, we'll see later on, shechita for a bird is only medivri seifrim. Rabbi Lezer says this in Perka Sheichet, that the whole notion, of course, there's a din of malika. We're talking about for Chulin, the shechita of a bird is only medivri seifrim. And shechita b'oif min ha-Torah. Aval, as we continue to Chafam and Beis, if you hold that shechita is a Torah-bound concept, it's actually, as Rashi says, halacha Moshe Sinai, it's part of Torah Shabbat Peh, that birds also have to be shechted. So yesh ikr, then there is ikr. So whether you'll say ikr, there's a din ikr on birds, is linked to the question of whether there's shechita is oiv min ha-Torah. So look in Rashi, third line, the son Rabbi Omer, v'zavachta kasher sevesicha. It says you shall slaughter it the way you were commanded. Malamid shinastabu Moishal hilcha shechita bal peh. We clearly see that Moshe was given oral tradition regarding the shechita. V'afal pi shlo kasam b'Torah al veshet v'al kana. Obviously, there's so many different things that are not mentioned in the Torah, such as doing the shechita, shechting the simanim, the kana, the veshet, the esophagus and the trachea, the distinction between an animal which you have to cut the majority of two simanim, as opposed to a bird, only the majority of one siman. Obviously, there is a din of shechita from a bird, the fact that we have all these different halacha Moshe Sinai. And therefore, there's also din ikr as well. You can say the opposite than that. You can say like this: if you hold that there's shechita from the Torah for a bird, ikal meimar the hachi agre the in ikr. That's how that was taught to Moshe, that there's no din when it comes to ikr for a bird. Maybe in certain ways the bird is comparable to an animal. When it comes to an animal, that they're not the same. So if it's only din to Rabbanan, how do the Rabbanan base themselves to do a shechita at all on a bird? So kol milsim kibehema. So everything should be like a bird, like an animal. So pumfakert. Maybe if you hold ein ikr min ein shechita zom min ha-Torah, maybe there is a din ikr, because we're learning out from an animal, so we don't make a distinction. So Ravina Amrli Ravin Barkisi Ha Detani Rabbi Bar Cheskel, that which he learned, the ein ikr simon ba'oif, that there's no din of ikr for a bird, lo armorin el b'malika. That's only when it comes to malika. So there's a difference. When it comes to malika on the Beis HaMikdash for the karbanos, you're right, Taka, that there is maybe no din of ikr simonim. However, when it comes to shchita, which is comparable to the shchita of a behema in many ways, so therefore the din of ikr also applies. So remember, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amar Shmuel, Kol Kashem Shchita Kenegdu B'Oyev Kashem Malika. We said that anytime we allow shchita, we allow the same thing, the same parameters for malika, which is mashmahal pasul. That when we're talking about things which are pasul by an animal, will also be pasul by a bird. Says Rashi, V'it saver shenekru semanim pasul shchita havi miskashiber heichim miskashiber malika. How could it possibly be kosher by malika? So you're telling me there's a difference between, by shchita, fine, there is ikr, but by malika there isn't. But if in fact we just said that shchita and malika are comparable in that whatever the dinim of shchita are to make it kosher, so to by malika, which would imply any time which is an issue of shchita, such as ikr, would also be an issue for malika. So when it says hahu pliga, with regard to this, Rabbi Yirmiyah disagrees. And actually, he says that the aflo shchita in ikr, that there's no difference when it comes to malika, and also when it comes to shchita, there is no din ikr for birds. Rashi adds, v'leis hilchasa kemasnisa. Our halacha is not like this, as we can see in Rashi. We'll see later on Daf Chavches, shachet es a veshet, if you shecht the esophagus, v'yachach nishmita hagorgeres, and then afterwards you pull out the grigoris, the throat, so kshera. So this is an issue of shchita, but at least you did the shchita first, and therefore it was already a good shchita. However, nishmat hagorgeres v'yachach shachet es a veshet pasul. If let's say you first did ikr removing, and then you cut the veshet, then it's pasul, which is clear that there's a din of ikr by birds. Shachet is a veshet nimsas and gargaris shemuta ve'en yodeim kodem shchita nishmata or achar shchita. You don't know when it happened before or afterwards, so it's a suffix. So zeh hayamaisa, this happened. Yamur kol suffix b'shchita psula. When it comes to shchita, in doubt, we're going to say it's pasul. Alma yish ikr ba'oif. We see clearly there is ikr when it comes to birds. So clearly, the halacha is not like the shita that there's no din shchita, there's no din ikr by shchita, not by malika, not by shchita. We clearly see that there is ikr at least when it comes to shchita. Okay, let's look at question 3. Tani chade in ikr simana ba'oif, v'tani idach nishpata hagargaris v'yachach shachadas aveshab psula, ma teretz l'stira zu. So what's the answer? On one hand, it says there's no din ikr, and over here it says that there is. So the answer is halom adiyim kamandiyarma yesh shchita loiv min atayra, halom kamandiyarma in shchita loiv min atayra. It depends if you hold yesh shchita, as we said, it's linked one to the other. Do we say that shchita if you hold, again, you look at it l'chad gisa, right? Either side, whether or not there's a din of shchita min atayra when it comes to a bird, and based on that, machlokas will be based on whether there's ikr for a bird. Okay, all right, but clearly the halacha says that there is. All right, okay, so that was question 3. All right, let's keep on moving. Omer Ziri, second wide line. Nishbra mafrekas, let's say the backbone broke. Varov basar ima, together with the majority of its basar with it, we say nevela. Now, what happened over here, says Rashi, that together with the backbone, the majority of the basar was cut, says Rashi, nevela. So there's a huge difference between animal being a treifa and a nevela regarding tuma. So a nevela, it's matama. It's matama miyad. Says Rashi, v'afal pishi mafreches, even though the animal's still shaking, which therefore you would maybe think it's still alive, we say no, it's considered to be dead. The mesa mamashi, the fact that you already cut the backbone and the majority of its basar, it's considered dead. Doesn't matter if it's shaking. The shchita the le'achar mikan loma tahara lo midi nevela. It's lo midi nevela. It's not going to change its status. Once it's a nevela, it's always a nevela. It doesn't change in the status of a shchuta. Once it's a nevela, it's a nevela. So once this was done, if you broke the backbone and you cut the raw basar, even if it's shaking, we still say that it's considered to be a nevela. Amr Rav Chisda afanami tanina. We also have something to support that. It says molak, that if you did malika besakin with a knife. Now, of course, you were supposed to use your nail, but instead used a knife. Now, in this case, even if the animal is still twitching, mitama begadim besabliya, it's considered to be nevela. Now, v'iyamrit treifa havi. If you want to say that by you doing malika with a knife creates only the status of a treifa, so malikasa zu hishchitasa dihavuli sakin kotarvi nevela. Why don't we say that just like when you do shchita with a knife, even though you didn't do it properly or something, it's considered a treifa, it's not a nevela. So why don't we say the same thing? Why are we saying that it's considered to be a nevela? So it must be a proof that since you did malika improperly by killing it in this way, so it becomes nevela. So too, when you break the backbone, even though if you do everything properly afterwards, so it's a nevela. Where it says no. Amri hasa mishlam do shchiti klal. No, the reason why over there it's a nevela is because it's not a shchita. So my time, Rav Huda Omer mipnei shehu. So why is it not a shchita? In this case, by using a knife. So he says mipnei shehu machlid, because you're doing chalada. You're covering. It's being covered by the bone. Rav Omer mipnei shehu dairis. You're pressing down on the simanim. Okay, so let's look at question 4, and then we're going to look at this Rashi. Malk basakin. So if you did malik with a knife, matam begadim besabliya, which means it's considered to be nevela. Okay. Now, what are the mehem gimel tamim? What are the 3 reasons the ishlemer baha den mo'ela shchita sasimanim latar midi nevela? Why don't we say that if you did the shchita, at least with a knife, that it should not at least be in the status of a nevela? So one is what we said before, is because once you did the shchita with a knife in the back, you broke the mafrekas, and the majority of the bone therefore becomes the nevela. That was what we wanted to say. Or we're going to say the reason why is because if you did shchita, if you did malika with a knife, so the shchita is pasul because of chalada. The knife is covered by the bone during the shchita of the simanim. Or it's the shchita is pasul because it's dairis, that you were pressed down and you were not hoylech v'hevi. When it comes to a knife, you got to go in both ways. But since you only did it in one direction, therefore it is considered to be a lack of doing it properly. It's considered you're a dairis. Okay, so let's look at Rashi. So it's not because you cut through the backbone and raw basar that's in the veil, rather because of machlid. Lachar shenisperku pirkei etzem. Once you break through the bone, ninotza sakin tachas etzem. So the knife gets covered up, swallowed up by the bones. Lafishin etzem mispashet, because the bones don't expand in both directions. Kederech shar beis hashchita. When you do shchita, we said it's mervach ravach, it expands, but not when it comes to bone. Ela oimid bimkoimoi, the bones stay in its place. So when you burrow under the bones, like digging underneath, that's considered chalada. That's not okay. Or because you're a dairis, you're pressing down. Mamish lo moich hamevi. You're supposed to be moich hamevi. However, when it comes to the malika, as we quoted before, kaitis v'yarim v'zum mitzvasa, that you just go in one time. So if you did it in that direction, but with a knife, you can't just do it one way. It's got to be moich hamevi, unlike malika. And therefore, since you did malika with a knife, that means you're not moich hamevi, which means you did you're a dairis. So the Gemara now breaks this down. Mandia memneshu machlid mataima loy memneshu dairis. Why'd you come up with two different answers to this? This is because ksavar moichu maybe b'malika kosher. It's actually machlokus when it comes to malika. We said before, does it have to go in only one direction? Can be moichu maybe not just by night but also by malika is it allowed? So he holds it's okay. So it's not an issue of that you were in dairis. It's covering up, the bone is covering it up. It's like a weasel that chadrab ikri batim, that it digs into the homes. The mechasia hacha, the mechasia, it's completely covered, like it's completely surrounded. But hacha, when it comes to this knife, hamigali, the knife is still revealed, even though there's some bone that it's next to, but it's not comparable to chlada where it's completely surrounded, and therefore it's not considered an issue. Says Rashi, miu hasakin nira amagula kozman chatichasai. As long as you're doing the cutting, you can still see the knife, so it's not chlada. Amarav, ikashili. If I have a question, hakashili, this is the question. The chimesa oimidu moilik. So says Rashi, la'achar shehi kamesa. After it's already like it's dead, b'shviras etzem basar, you broke the bone, you cut through the flesh. Lama oimidu moilik shuva simonim. What is he doing? Doing maliko with these simonim. If you want to say that you only made it into a treifa, so nishbra below malika, that makes sense. So at least you're doing something, that you're removing it from the status of potential being an avela. It's a treifa. It says v'chein b'chol shaychtin mishenakav haveshet. Once you cut the veshet, yesh kan ma'isa treifa. V'chi gamer shchitaso, when you completed it, miskashra im lo shah shir shihia. Avos z'iri dechashu le meisa ma'u oimid moilik. So like, what's going on over here, right? If it's already dead, so what's the purpose of cutting it if you say it's already in the vela? So Amali Hasam Kedila Kayaba mitzvahs Havdalah. There's still a purpose, that there's a mitzvah of Havdalah of separating the bird's head. So as we're going to see, a distinction when it comes to karbanos between the olos ha'oif and the chatas of, that it's supposed to be mavdil by the olos ha'oif, and therefore there's still a purpose in it. So yahachi or nami, so separate the skin too. So kolam ma'akev b'shchita ma'akev b'havdalah. Anyways, ma'akev b'shchita is ma'akev in separating. Chol she'ena ma'akev b'shchita, ena ma'akev b'havdalah. V'ha miut simanim or rabbanan d'lo ma'akev b'shchita. When it comes to miut simanim, in which the rabbanan do not say it's ma'akev, u'ma'akev b'havdalah, but they do say it's ma'akev with havdalah. So this we're going to see soon. If you look in Rashi, Kol ma'akev b'shchita, so or the hide einu ma'akev b'shchita. She'ilu kainim shchita nitel kol or. Technically, if you would have removed all the skin before the shchita, it's kosher technically. Almost not that we would do that, but technically it doesn't matter. Almost simanim shchita talabahu. The simanim are tal rachmana. Ulachatchil kuhu boy. You actually need to do the whole thing. Hilkach gabi havdalah ma'akev. So for havdalah it is separate. It is ma'akev. Avahamiet simanim or rabbanan. The pligul kaman b'shmaisa. We'll see later on that the rabbanan argue with Rabbi Lezer, Reb Shimon in the army law, and they say the lo tiski b'rov shnayim, the cutting both, the cut of the veshet, the majority el imkin gomer kuloi. They hold they have to cut through it completely, not just rove when it comes to these karbanos. Now, when it comes to, as we know by shchita, it's not ma'akev, but when it comes to havdalah, according to them, it is ma'akev, because according to the shchita, according to the regular shchita, you only have to cut rove simanim. When it comes to havdalah, according to the rabbanan, you have to cut through the entirety of it, which is a machlokas whether that's true. But according to the rabbanan, right? Because as long as you cut rove, right? If you cut cut rove, it's enough. It's enough for shchita, but not havdalah. Okay, according to the sheet of the Rabbanan, you have to completely sever. Anything which applies to shchita applies to havdalah. So you have to flip the words around a little bit. Chaf aleph amud aleph. V'kol makom kasha. 1 second. It's still what is the purpose of doing this? It's in the veil. So Marava ema v'chein hu oisa. This is as he did. Chaytich shiru mafrekas below roy basar. So it was below roy basar. We're talking if it's roy basar, you're right. There's nothing to talk about. But if you cut the mafrekas, but you did not cut the majority of the basar around in it, so it's not considered dead yet. That's what it's talking about. Then you did the shechita. So ki salk Rav Zer Ashkli Rav Ami the Yosef Karmelo Hashmaisa. They were saying and discussing this sugya. Armalei said v'chimesa amido moilik. So again, the same question. He delayed for a moment. Armalei ema kachu oisa chaytech shir b'afrekas beloy roiv baser. So look at Rashi. Roiv b'baser shel mafrekas dekati la misahi. It's not dead yet. The hazir mafrekas below baser kaimer. If it's a roll baser, it's considered dead. But if it wasn't roll baser, then it is not. Question 4 we did. Let's look at some more questions. TA 18. Omer Rava chaytech shedra mafrekas beloy roy basar madua below roy basar. So why does it mention below roy basar? That's TA 18. Why does it mention roy basar? Why not below? Because if it was already roy basar, then it's nevela. It's mesav oimid umoilik. So it's already dead. So therefore, he had to use the case where it is where it's below roy basar. So this is Chafim and Beis. Let's see what I wrote. Shehu Adayin Chai B'Shas Shivir Hashedra V'loi Lasos Nevela. Okay. That is a good answer. TB 21. Tanu Rabbi Cheskel in Iker Simanim B'Oif. Ma'ishna B'Behema D'Yesh Iker Simanim. So, Ein Iker Simanim B'Oif. Why when it comes to, why is there no Iker Simanim B'Oif? Why is there the Mehem the Yesh Iker Simanim? So, one has to do with Ein Shchitas Oif Min HaTorah, the Yesh Shchitas Behema Min HaTorah, so that definitely is a good answer. That one is definitely correct. So they're totally zebazeh. It's TB 21. Okay, so right, whether or not we hold yesh shchita oif min HaTorah, whether there's din ikr, that's one, and then there's a couple of other answers over here. What's the question? So why would it not apply to a bird but only to a behema? Let's see. So another answer, I guess, it just Rashi says, "Daha kesha b'sinai nemra agmir rachman lo moishal peh lo inyan ikr lo havi kebehema." So another answer is like halacha Moshe Sinai, right? It's basically halacha Moshe Sinai that there's an ikr by birds. Okay, that's another correct answer. And maybe let's see what else Rashi says here. Samchi danan tikun le shchita bebehema garmi hilka kula milsa bebehema tikun. Okay, what else did I write? Sagib and nechira. That's, I don't know what that is. Sagib b'siman echad, maybe. Bebehema sarach. This I'm not sure if that's the right answer. I think I was just like drawing at straws. But definitely, it's totally whether you say Shchitas Oif Min HaTorah or not. And it's also could be Halacha Moshe Sinai. Rashi brings down that there's no din ikr by a behema, by an oaf rather. And that's basically what I see. Okay, I'm not sure what the third answer is. It says Rashi, Ayin Rashi, Adkan.